Hey, welcome to Bookshelf Central and Suddenly Homeschooling. I have had a myriad of questions lately about should I set up a schoolroom in my home? And so I thought I'd address that real quickly and give you some thoughts. I know that if you were to ask 5 veteran homeschoolers their opinions, you would likely get 5 different responses because everybody seems to be really opinionated because what works for them works for them. And so I'm going to give you a few things to think about as you try to set up your kids' workspace, and you may have already started, in fact. But one of the things, obviously, to take into consideration is the space you have available in your home. If you have a small house, you're not going to have the space for a dedicated schoolroom. And so you're going to look for an alcove or a box, a big box that you can stick everything in after you're done with school and slide it under a bed or behind a door. And so don't feel bad about that. That's what you've got to work with, and just do the best you can. If you have a larger house, you may indeed have a space that you can dedicate specifically to learning. Now, the question becomes in either instance, how do you do this, or should you do this? And it depends on lots of factors. One of the biggest factors that I think you should take under consideration is who is administering the schoolwork or supervising. Maybe supervising is a better word. Who is supervising the schoolwork? And I personally think that you need to play to the teacher in that regard, to the administrator. Because I, as the administrator of my homeschool, I have to know where everything is. I need to know where the kids' math assignments are. I need to know where their laptops are, all the pencils, the pencil sharpener. I need to know where things are. And so how does it work for me? I'm a very OCD type person when it comes to that type of thing because I need to know. I want to be able to put my fingers on the next quiz that I give for spelling, or the next math test, or the next batch of manipulatives that we're going to use for teaching a lesson. And so for me, having a dedicated space is very helpful. Now, that dedicated space does not have to be the space where the children sit during the entire school day. That's something I think that's really important to keep in mind. Now, if you are doing public school through an online learning center and the kids are required to sit in front of the computer all day, that may be a little bit different story, but you still need to know where the materials are, because ultimately you're responsible for making sure that they're doing their academic work. Now, one of the things to take into consideration is, what are you going to do for the 21-22 school year? Because a lot of people probably are potentially doing schooling at home just for one school year till all of this COVID straightens itself out to some degree, and we know how life looks. And if you are indeed planning to send them back to a traditional school setting, you indeed might want to make their learning environment look as similar to what they're going to encounter in the future or what they have encountered in the past, so that they feel confident going forward. And that's important to take under consideration as well. Now, when we first started homeschooling, I had a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a newborn. And we did not have a large house, but we had space for a little Tykes plastic table. We had a little yellow top and 2 plastic benches on each side. And we tucked that behind a sofa. We didn't have a lot of floor space, but we used that space largely for seat work until I started to realize, I'm not so sure about this. My boys are learning better being active. And so what ended up happening was we took that little Tykes picnic table and put it outside where we could use it indeed for picnics. And then what I did was I put a 3-shelved bookshelf and it depended on the house we lived in because we moved shortly thereafter we started homeschooling, either in a bedroom, the kids' bedroom, or in the kitchen. And each shelf was for one child. So I had the youngest child was on the bottom, all of their workbooks, and of course at first he was an infant, so he didn't have anything. But the bottom shelf was for everything for the youngest child. The middle shelf was for my middle child, and the next shelf up was for my oldest child, and then the very top was for the teacher's manuals that were for multiple levels. So I used unit studies oftentimes, and those, didn't have workbooks and all of that. So anyway, as they got older and we moved into one particular house, we decided to renovate the single car garage into a schoolroom. And I loved that. I had a dedicated place for all of my school books, all of my books about the Civil War and about ancient Egypt and about rocks and volcanoes. I had all of that in one space. There were 3 desks in there for the children, and they were just old desks that I picked up. One of them was an old desk that I had growing up. One of them was an old desk of my dad's, and one of them was those old-timey school desks with this space under the seat. And then I had a flat desk for myself, just an old desk. We were crowded, we were cramped. I mean, it was wall-to-wall books and desks because it was tiny. But because it was a dedicated space, if I found a book out in the living room about rocks, I knew exactly where it went, and so did my children, in the schoolroom. And so it was really nice to have that dedicated area. But let me tell you, and I please hope you'll hear this, I did not require them to sit at their desks all day long. If they wanted to do their math on the trampoline, I did not care. I cared about them learning. I cared about the fact that they were being diligent in practicing those math facts over and over. Now, there were some things we did together as a group. We did science experiments together at the kitchen table. That was not in our schoolroom. We did read-alouds together in our den, and we kind of lounged around on the sofa or the recliner, and there was usually one boy laying in the floor as I would read aloud to them every day. And so there were some things that we certainly did sitting straight up at our desks, but I did not require it. There were a few things. Let me kind of back up a little bit. I did not require them to do it all day, every day. There were some things that I would say, here's your math test. I want you to do it wherever I am in the house, because I wanted them to feel like they would feel in a traditional school setting, because eventually I assumed they were going to go to college, and they would have to know what it was like to have a test with someone proctoring that. And so those kind of things I did require them. It's, again, though, if I was cooking supper, they might have to do that at the kitchen table. And so, do you set up a schoolroom? I don't know. Do you? I've seen some beautiful schoolrooms on these Instagram photos. I mean, I'm charmed. I mean, they're just gorgeous. There is beautiful handwriting script sample alphabet things around the wall. There's beautiful pictures of plants. There's like an American flag. There's cozy cushions. There's desks. And those people are blessed. I think that's great. And that's going to work for them. With me, with 3 boys, with my husband in church work, that would have never, it wouldn't have worked for me. It would have worked after I took a picture and then walked away. That's about how long it would have lasted. And so I just want to encourage you to think about your situation, think about the future of your kids' education. And the last thing I want to mention to you is to be adaptable. If you decide you're going to set up a schoolroom, a dedicated space, and you are going to require them to sit there, Wait a week. See how it works in their bedroom. So I encourage you not to like set everything up on the walls, make it all cutesy, because what if it works better in the den? That's what I found, is that I shifted things around at the beginning until I found this little space that when we renovated that single car garage, and that worked for us. But at the beginning, I didn't know. And so give yourself some grace. Just work with it, work with your kids. Do the best that you can, and try not to stress over the space. Remember that the space that's all it is. It's just a space in which you can engage in learning. But learning might be just as fun under the tree on a mossy bed with leaves falling. So guys, if you have any questions, give me a holler. Bye-bye.